and welcome back to File New, the weekly show for the best artist, creator, and tech news. My name is Ryan Selvy, and I'm your host. This week on the show, we talk about deepfakes, protecting your work from AI, rat hole, whether the pandemic changed weekends forever, a Pokemon lookalike, and a lot more. A reminder that File New is also available as a podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If it's not there when you look for it, please let me know. I am still figuring it out, and I would love to get it available as soon as possible. But we've got a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and hop right into news. Also, before we start out today, I do want to do a quick shout out to Ali Rogers. She was my producer this week. She helped me with getting a lot of stories and helped organize the show. So a big thank you to her. I'm not sure if she's in the chat right now or not, but also hello to everyone that is in the chat. First up, there's a new free tool to protect your work from being used without permission in the training of AI systems like DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and Midjourney. The tool is called Nightshade and was developed by computer scientists at the University of Chicago. They said it's an offensive tool that artists can use as a group to disrupt models. It works by incorrectly training AI models with artifacting images. When used by a lot of artists, Nightshade could, for example, teach Midjourney that a girl in a shiny red vehicle and wheels. Nightshade could, for example, teach Midjourney that a girl is actually a shiny red vehicle with wheels. It's important to note that Adobe Firefly is not mentioned because Adobe Firefly is only trained using data from Adobe stock, openly licensed content, and content in the public domain. You love to hear it. I love to use it. They sponsor the show, but that's not the reason why I don't feel bad using this one. I genuinely feel okay when I use generative fill in Photoshop because I know that they are at least thinking about it when training the models, whereas in other instances, they're not, and they're just scraping data. So anyway, this is how it works, okay? Basically, they take your image and they then tell that that dog is instead a cat. So the way that you're going to read this is that the clean model is in the very top level here. And basically, they have a picture of a dog, and the way that you do the layering on top of the image, once it gets enough samples, it's going to start to restructure that image to be a cat on the bottom. So you can see here in this image that is provided by the Nightshade paper by the University of Chicago. You can see that they have a clean image of a dog at the very top, and 50 samples, it starts to look a bit weird. 100 samples, it's starting to look like a cat, and by 300 poison samples, it looks like a cat. And they have this example across the board with 8 different examples from dog, car, handbag, hat, fantasy art, cubism, cartoon, concept art. And it's able to take what they have and tell the systems that it's something else. So then when it pulls the information from the image as how it's reading, then it actually gets confused and turns into something else. Here's another example, but this time it's actually from a X user, Sin4KA111. And you can see that in the original, there is just the regular image, and then there's a low fast and a low slow. And you can kind of see it artifacting on the first one. You can see it down by his elbow down there. You can kind of see how it gets a little bit weird. But the slower one seems to be similar when you export a JPEG in Photoshop and you give it longer to save at a smaller file size. Like, it's going to work harder to be able to make it be less noticeable and continue to also make it work. I think the technology still is in its infancy. It's still Model 1, but I think it's very promising to see at least this kind of moving along, and it's still looking like an image and not being covered in watermarks. This is the one other thing that they have actually in their example white paper, and you can see between the original and the poisoned image that the two are pretty much indecipherable to the human eye, but when it comes to a computer's eye, then it's not as big of a deal. Speaking of which, if you want to get really upset about this, there is a darker side of AI, as always, and that's Nightshade, which is the good one. But more recently, earlier this week in New Hampshire, just before the primary, voters got a robocall from President Biden telling them not to go to the primaries because, quote, your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday. And obviously the Biden administration wouldn't do this, and it turns out it was a deepfake. But I went ahead and I grabbed the deepfake so you guys can hear it, and let's take a listen.
What a bunch of malarkey. We know the value of voting Democratic when our votes count. It's important that you save your vote for the November election. We'll need your help in electing Democrats up and down the ticket. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday. If you would like to be removed from future calls, please press 2 now.
Wow. We're just at the beginning of the 2024 election cycle. We're going to see lots and lots of more of this. And there are totally new AI machine learning tools that could be used for these types of disinformation campaigns. So we got to stay frosty. They won't always be this obvious to us, nor will they be widely covered like this one was. All I can say is I'm already so tired, and it's going to be so hard. But as artists specifically, we really need to focus on how we are able to manipulate media and how media is be able to manipulate us. So keep that in mind when you're working with anything online, you're reading news online, make sure you keep that in mind. In happier news, Camp MoGraph, a 4-day retreat for animators and motion designers to hang out, take workshops, and gather by the campfire, announced Wednesday that they secured a location for the United States version. The popular version of Motion Graphics Camp for adults already has another week planned for Australia later this year, and there's more details about the America version, but I was really nervous because I really want to go. I've never been. I saw that they announced an Australia version, and I thought they were only going to do Australia this year, but this Wednesday, all they said is that they had secured a location for the American version, and that there's more details to come. So make sure you guys check it out. In an unexpected update to last week's story about Van Gogh's Pokemon collaboration chaos, ArtNet has reported that the Van Gogh Museum has fired 4 staffers. One of the fired employees reportedly stole a box of limited edition Pikachu gray felt hat cards, and another staffer released unauthorized insider information to guests about which they could best grab the cards. Wait, I'm going to re-say that. Sorry. Another staffer released unauthorized insider information to guests about when they could best grab the cards, which apparently is a breach of the museum's procedures and codes of conduct and reason for dismissal. It's just... Who knew that a collaboration between the Pokemon and Van Gogh Museum would cause so much chaos far beyond just the initial release of the merch? We reported last week that the new cards are going to be available in stores, not inside the museum, and it's going to have a slow rollout. But it's just so crazy that you take a thing of Pikachu and you make it look like Van Gogh, and people just have lost their minds. Now, in a little bit of an offbeat story, this one was selected by Allie. It's Rat Hole, and it's in Chicago's Roscoe Village neighborhood, no relation to my cat. People are flocking to a modern altar, an imprint of a rat in a sidewalk, and apparently it's been there for over 20 years and happened when a poor rat must have died in the wet cement, leaving a very clear outline of a rat's body. And I guess we can just let this be our next muse for whatever next piece you're working on. But the most recent saga began when local comedian and artist Winslow Dumaine tweeted about making a pilgrimage to the rat hole. Side note, his X display name is Gatorade Should Be Thicker. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know what that means. But since then, people have paid tribute to Rat Hole by throwing money in it, leaving candles and flowers, even getting married by the hole. Not everyone loves the hole. Someone even tried to fill it in, but Rat Hole supporters quickly dug it out so that it was visible again. A local resident actually took to Reddit to complain about the behavior of the crowds. And said that the city is actually going to replace the concrete slab soon. They confirmed that there would not be a permanent installation honoring the rat, and the rat hole's days are numbers. And this is why we can't have nice things. Thank you, Allie, for that wonderful story. On to Hyperlinks. So Hyperlinks is the fun segment of the show where I showcase cool things I found across the internet this week, from goofy websites to cool internet experiments. Starting out, I want to highlight a fun exercise from Graham Bradley from A+. They recently launched a new website with their Foundry, which is from aplus.com, that highlights some of their custom type. Later this year, they're also launching retail licensing with some original projects, and they've got some really cool stuff in their portfolio, so I recommend you check them out. But this week, Graham took to Instagram to post a cool exercise for type designers, and I want to see how everyone's going to do with it. So I did awful, but I want to see how you guys did.
Do you think you have what it takes to be a type designer? Let's find out. I'm going to show you a lowercase b, d, p, and q that have been flipped around so they're all facing the same direction. You need to decide which is which. In most serif typefaces, these letters are all different. You'll get 5 seconds for each. Post your answers below and try not to watch it twice.
All right, so how did you do? Like I said, I did horribly. They do have the answers in the comments for it, and basically these are the 4 side by side that were in the video. He made it so they all lined up and they all look in the same orientation. But the answers for this part was D, Q, P, and B. And basically you could tell by the extensions of their ligatures and how they descend, and basically each one is supposed to be different so that it's not just a flip around with a properly made typeface. They have like I said, a very beautiful website. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull it up for you guys and just show you guys a little bit some of the work that they have, because it's really beautiful type work, and it just goes to show that they know what they're talking about with the approach of typefaces. And I'm hoping that I can check out some of their stuff as they continue to launch things throughout the year. Once again, it's from aplus.com, and they just have a really good selection of work. They have a really good way of showcasing their work. I think it's a really good example of a really nice portfolio website, especially for a Foundry. And then with each identity, they have a really good breakdown, putting it in different showcases, putting it in all the different forms that you would see, and also giving a good talking to as to why they made the decisions that they chose. So once again, that is from A+, and I hope you guys check it out. Our second hyperlink comes from file new producer Ali Rogers with a website that she said she uses almost weekly, and that one is called Scream into the Void. And it's basically what you think it's going to be. You go on and you write out what you want to scream into the void, and then by pressing a button, you make it fade away with the sound of a scream, which is very therapeutic. But every week, Allie, are you okay? I'm going to go ahead. I'll also share my screen so you guys can see this. But it's literally just called screamintothevoid.com. And it's a very simple interface. Love to see it. You can type whatever you want here. So we can say, well, who's in chat? Let's see. What does anyone in chat have for anything? Oliver said he saw too much of Rat Hole this week. And then you go ahead and you hit scream. And I don't think I have my audio shared, but there is a nice little scream. It fades into black. It says, glad nobody read that. And then if you want to, you can click and write something again if you want to say hello. And it'll just get rid of it every single time. So thank you very much for sharing that. I will definitely be adding it to my inventory of different websites that I have, and I'm glad that she shared it. But let's get into some a little bit more serious topics, and let's check out thoughts. More Pokemon news? Who knew File New would be so Pokemon heavy? Anyway, Power World, a new game by developer Pocket Pair, not associated with Nintendo, was released on January 19th. The game has sold over 8 million copies and became the most played game on Steam. These impressive numbers aren't even including the players accessing the game through Xbox game subscription service Game Pass. The game has been unofficially described as Pokemon with guns and has stark similarities to Nintendo's intellectual property despite no affiliation. So similar, in fact, that within days, Australian YouTuber named Toasted Shoes was able to create and post a mod of the game, replacing the monsters in the game known as Pals with Pokemon. Nintendo swiftly served a DMCA to the mod, but hadn't acknowledged Power directly until yesterday. In a statement from Nintendo, they said, "We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to Pokemon." Which is pretty surf and scary, but I want to caveat here and say that this isn't your average, like, Digimon to Pokemon likeness. The similarities in these creatures is staggering. And to properly show this, I wanted to bring up some side-by-side comparisons between Pokemon and pals. So right here, we have Cattiva on the right. We have Wigglytuff on the left. I'm guessing you guys probably know Wigglytuff is Pokemon because that's like a super first generation one, I think. But you can see they have the same eyes. They have similar noses. They're the similar shade. They have similar body parts. Very, very close. Even more so, they have one which is Azurobe and Superior. The Pokemon is on the left. The pal is on the right. They're both very, once again, body similar creations. You can easily kind of switch out their colors, and one is just green and one is blue. We have Boltmane and Luxray, and once again, this is one of. I would, if you don't follow Pokemon, I would ask you which one is a Pokemon, and I don't think you would be able to pick out which one it is. I personally would not, because I don't know newer gen Pokemon. I know because I pulled the images for this, but it's staggering. And the very last one I have is Tansy and Grookey, which this one is a little bit, you could put it up and say like, oh, okay, it's just similar, but animals are animals. But once again, it's just the cartoon eyes, the coloring, just how they're kind of broken out in their position, how they sit. It just feels very, very similar. And as artists, we're constantly challenging and exploring the space between inspiration, influence, parody, plagiarism. And I'll admit that it's a fine line. And Pokemon has had a death grip on the genre over the years. However, over the years, Digimon, Nexomon, and even Yu-Gi-Oh! Have played with similar formats, but nothing has really flown quite as close to the sun as Power World has. Now, it is worth saying that Pokemon is the highest grossing media franchise of all time. That's not a mistake. I make sure I triple checked it. It is the highest grossing media franchise of all time. This beats Mickey Mouse. With a total estimated revenue of $88 billion with a B. I will say, I also looked up the net worth of the guy that created Pokemon, and it said it's estimated he only has $10 million, which was like, that's weird. That doesn't add up, but those numbers aren't always accurate. But over the years, Pokemon has had its fair share of complaints from its fan base for releasing half-baked games filled with glitches and bugs and lacking innovation, and the fan base has been begging for updates and more care for the intellectual property. That is features that Power World has delivered on. Is it right for a studio to come in and essentially steal a concept if it's for the evolution of a format? Do you consider this intellectual property theft, or is it a fan service? I went ahead and I set up a email so that we can hear your thoughts and incorporate them more into next week's show. And I would love to hear what you think on filenewshow@gmail.com, or comment on the YouTube video, and I'll check it out there. We actually have two thoughts, though, this week. So that's the first one, which is Power World versus Pokemon. Another one is one that I came across and I really related to. It was an article from Business Insider about weekends feeling different than they used to. The article blames the pandemic and the economy for a shift in public sentiment. They point to users voicing the idea on TikTok and to an Atlantic article titled How We Learn to Be Lonely. Business Insider also brought in a psychologist named Yasmin Saad, and she actually has a really good quote. It says, the concept of chilling has evolved into more than just a leisure activity. It has become a crucial part of coping mechanisms, allowing individuals to decompress and find solace amidst the turmoil of the world. But she also goes on to say the intent behind someone's choices is the most important factor. If someone stays at home because of excessive avoidance or feeling like socializing is an obligation, they should reconsider doing so. Now, like I said, this is something that really resonates with me. I feel like it's really affected me. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older. I don't know if it's because of COVID. But I know that I used to identify fully as an extrovert, and I find myself more and more finding rechargeable moments as the moments I have to myself. Could this just be because I'm getting older? Probably. But lockdown taught me I could enjoy a night in as much as a night out, and I don't know if I would have had that same mentality if we weren't to have that lockdown and that experience. I think that I can juggle it kind of well. But I want to hear how you guys feel, and if you guys are noticing a difference in your weekends, or if it all still feels the same to you. Also, straight to the comments, I want to see that Rick is saying, so Ryan Mon never took off? Not yet. We got to wait. And Oliver is saying, Pokemon has been around for quite a long time. So I'm guessing, is that an argument for or for against? And Oliver is saying that it is blatantly copied, though. So I definitely agree. It's interesting to see how it goes. Like I said, they did a DMCA towards the mod, but they have not issued any sort of DMCA towards the actual game publisher themselves. Interesting enough, it is on Game Pass, so Xbox picked it up, and I don't know where that puts Xbox as far as like being an accomplice to distribution and kind of legitimizing the game studio. It is interesting, and another thing that I can actually put on my socials, which is Ryan Selvy on Instagram or what have you, is the company that made Pal World made a really cool write-up on just their game development process and failing and trying new things. And that read in itself, taking apart from any sort of theft or plagiarism, is really inspiring and a cool read through. I'm trying to figure out how to make a video game myself, and it was really a nice read, so I will make sure that I will share that with you guys. But that's enough about Pokemon for one show. Let's go on to Font of the Week. This week's Font of the Week is Anth, a new sharp and clearly drawn transitional typeface from Anthony Despignia of ThinStroke. Anthony Spignia is a world-renowned typographer, and each of his typefaces are hand-drawn. I'm going to start this over. Is that okay? Okay. Each of his typefaces are hand-drawn with ink and white paint before they are meticulously digitized. The typeface Anth features an ample X height, meaning it's easily read at small sizes, and it's meant to be easily read in both print and digital formats. I am trying to get more into my serif fonts. I like that it's transitional. I think that it has a lot of flexibility. It has many different weights, and it could be both a body font or a header font. It's available on Typekit, just like all the ones that we have in previous episodes. And I think that it's just a nice alternative to using something like Times New Roman. And I think that you can definitely implement this into your designs, into your decks, and they just have a nice feel to them. All right, but that's enough of Font of the Week. On to Ticketbooth. So there are these fun little mushrooms that have popped up, and I'm really excited to check them out. And I gotta switch down to here though. Madison Square Park is displaying a new artwork by Ana Maria Hernando for the next 2 months. I found this piece through reporting by Ria Nayar from Hyperallergic. Denver-based artist Ana Maria Hernando's piece is called To Let the Sky Know and features 15 loofah-like plumes elevated on poles from the ground. They're extremely colorful and buoyant and bring the underside of dresses and skirts to the forefront as a commentary on femininity and also pays tribute to her textile-oriented family in Argentina. Looks particularly cool with the recent snowfall on them. They kind of look like little Mario mushrooms. And it's actually the first of 4 projects to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Madison Square Park's Conservancy art program. So I can't wait to go see the floofs, but I'm also excited to see what is next. And so I included a few images of these floofs. They are provided from the conservancies. And you can see that they are these elevated little floofs on poles. They obviously interact with the weather as the snow came down. I'm interested to see how they fare against like harsher conditions like rain or wind. But they are kind of scattered across the lawn, and I have not seen them in person, but they're very tall. For scale, they're I think 12 feet tall or something. So it's not like you can even reach up and grab them. When they were installing them, they were using ladders. But they look really cool, and they're these pink and orange loofah style fluffy pieces of art on top of a pole. So make sure you go check them out if you're in the area. Also in Manhattan, last week we were talking a little bit about immersive art. And by coincidence, when I was on my way to the theater, I was down the financial district, and I walked by Mercer Labs. Now, it is where Century 21 used to be. So if you are familiar with financial district at all, it's that really big building right down by the Oculus. And it's currently in its soft launch with a grand opening planned for February. But it's self-described as an experimental institution that redefines the relationship between art and technology through 15 experimental exhibition spaces, interactive experiences, unique listening encounters, and immersive installations. Time Out Magazine and ArtNet reported it's being opened by Roy Nakam, an artist previously known for making the album artwork of Rihanna's 2016 album, Anti. The museum has many different experiences, including a room filled with pillows meant to be experienced with a blindfold on, and the sound experience relies on feeling and hearing the space. It also includes a room where there are 500,000 individual LED lights dangling from the ceiling to create three-dimensional videos, and I can't wait to go and report back. Apparently they have some interaction between like coloring different dinosaurs or something, and then you can like throw them up into the exhibition to be part of it permanently. And this is what I was talking about last week when I was saying like it needs to be more than just projections. It needs to be more than just like painting the walls. It has to have a interactive experience. It has to have commentary. And I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing what it looks like on the inside. I mean, it's a huge building. You can see there's a little Oculus like right next to it. I'm hopeful that it's going to deliver, because those are two things that I personally love. It's what we do in this show. And I hope that we're able to then take that and go and actually put it into a visual space. Let's go and hop on into resources. So first up is Darta. Darta is a new app on iPhone that recommends art shows in a Tinder-like swiping mechanism. You'll get individualized recommendations from leading galleries and machine learning. You can also create and share lists with friends, as well as follow galleries you like. The app says it's built for human interaction, not transactions, view art in person, and develop personal relationships with gallerists and artists. I have not personally tried it out yet. I just saw it not too long before we went live, and I wanted to add it to the resources. I'm excited to check it out. I saw in an example of the use of it is it that can provide a little kind of like a Yelp map and has little pins across where you can go and you can pick out different places where there's art. You can say if you like an art with a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a swipe, and then it will take that and then put it into its machine learning and say, okay, if you like this, you might like that. Or if you don't like this, maybe try this out. And it's about being able to connect people with art. That's not just an electronic relationship, but actually getting people to go to galleries, getting people to go to shows, getting people to develop relationships with gallerists and artists. And I think that it's an ambitious idea. I don't know how long it'll be around or what it will support entirely, especially on a scaling system, because I feel like this is going to have something that has curation and has people working on it. But also at the same time, like if you are in the middle of the country where there's just plains for miles and miles and miles, I don't know how many hits you're going to get when you pull it up, or if it's going to be like the closest thing is a 6-hour drive away. So as someone who is near New York, I'm excited about it. But if you're outside of a huge metropolitan American city, I don't know if it's going to work. Oliver is in the chat saying Darta is not available in the UK store. So it looks like it's just America for now. But I am excited to see if it continues to grow, how it works out. I'm going to play with it, and I'll get back to you guys and let you know what I think about it. Next up, James Barnard. He's a graphic designer. He's a friend of the show and overall cool guy. He posted on Instagram the other day a reel that I learned a lot from. It's about setting up macros on your keyboard to automate tedious tasks. So I went ahead and I preloaded it for us so we could check it out. But I'm going to go ahead and play it.
Designers, we're going to nerd out a little bit for a minute here and talk about macros. Because if you spend a little time to set them up properly, you can go faster as a designer, which means less time spent on designing and more clients through the door. Now, what is a macro? Well, essentially, macros are little sequences of events, like different keystrokes or mouse clicks, that can be played back to help with repetitive tasks. With special software, what this means is that you can take an existing keyboard, like my Logitech MX Keys for Mac, the Creator Micro by Work Louder, or even this unusual little split setup keyboard called the Digma Defy, and turn it into a rocket booster for programs like Adobe Illustrator. Here's an example. This design is a combination of strokes and fills, but I need to export this as a one-color flat vector to send to a laser cutter. Normally, I would select everything, go to Object, Rasterize, leave this at 300 ppi and press OK. Then I would image trace, click on the image trace panel, uncheck snap curves to lines, ignore color and select white, expand that result and then deselect. That's a lot of steps. But with this macro that I made earlier, you can do all of that with one tap of this key. Now, if you can find 10 tasks inside your software that you do on a daily basis, but there aren't keyboard shortcuts for, and write them down, you can save oodles of time over the course of a career by assigning those tasks to macros. They don't have to be big, like centering something to my artboard, for instance. That requires 2 separate mouse clicks, and there's no keyboard shortcut for it. But I do this so many times a day that it makes sense for me to set a macro up for it. So in Illustrator, under Window Actions, I can start recording a new action, center an object to my artboard, stop recording, and assign that shortcut to Command-Shift-F12. But on my main keyboard, that's actually 4 keystrokes because I have a function button that allows access to the F keys, which means I have to make this ridiculous claw shape with my hands. Instead, I can map those 4 keystrokes to one button, and now when I want to center something, all I have to do is hit this key. These keyboards I mentioned all come with software to do this, and the Digma Defy and the Creator Micro have custom RGB settings, so you can pretty up your desk a little bit. So take a look, do some research, and see which ones work for you. Be careful though, because mechanical keyboards are a bit of a black hole, and they can become something of an addiction.
Clicky switches.
Thank you to James for the oodles of time back. Also, while we were doing that, James actually popped into the Behance chat. So thank you for being here, James. And thank you for letting us use your video. I am excited to set up some macros. I don't fully know which ones I will do. I think that a good suggestion was the one that you had with centering the artboard. But I would be really interested. I actually tried to pause your video and zoom into the little ones that you click down on. But I'd love to hear all the ones that you have. If at some point that you share them, I don't know. Just because, yeah, there are certain things that I'm sure I do 1,000 times, but I'm not entirely sure of what those things are, and I can't necessarily identify them. So it'd be really interesting to hear what works for you. Also, if anyone else in the chat has ones where they know that they have systems that they use over and over again, I think that it would be really cool to hear what you guys are using, so maybe I can apply them to my own. I don't have any additional keyboards, but I have been wanting to try out a Work Louder keyboard, so I would also love to hear your experience with that. And I think you're absolutely insane for having one of the ones that has a divided keyboard, because my dad has those, and they're even like, they're not even normal like this, they're like angled with like weird thumbs. I can't do it. I do too much of chicken poking to use anything that can be just focused like that. But that's enough of James. It's not the James show. We're going to move on to Benjamin. And Benjamin Gugic has provided a really great resource via Instagram Reels again. And he's leveraging Google Earth Studio for some awesome drone shots.
Believe it or not, this shot was not filmed with a drone. And no, I didn't spend hours, if not days, creating this shot in the 3D software. Incredibly, this shot was created using Google Earth Studio. Here's how it works. First things first, sign up on their website and wait a day or 2 for approval. Once you're in, choose your video dimensions and frame rate, then go to literally anywhere in the entire world. Fine-tune your camera position with these controls, create a keyframe to lock this camera position in, then move ahead on your timeline and peek. Now the camera will automatically move between the keyframes. Once you're happy with it, click render, download it from your email, and throw it into your editor to sauce it up a bit. I'll add some speed ramps, camera shake, motion blur, a nice color grade, and some sound effects. And voila, fake drone shots. Save this video and try it out for yourself. And of course, follow for more.
Thank you, Benjamin. I remember when Google Earth first came out, and I remember the excitement about just like flying around, looking at your house, looking at the town that you're in. But I never really thought about using it for any sort of content creation, or using it even more specifically for a 3D model like pan or drone. And it's really interesting to see that if I were to dive back into it, they even have features where you can do, and you can kind of tween between keyframes and between locations. I mean, adding a subtle motion shake is going to go a very long way. I mean, that's across the board with a bunch of content that you work on. But it would be interesting to see how that could be applied to so many different things. I wonder what the legal use is for like rights and using it for commercial usage. Like if you use that for a client, is that okay? I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But even just for personal stuff, I think that's really cool. And I didn't know that was a possibility. So I would like to check it out. Now, with that in mind, do you have a resource in mind? Do you have a creator you find super helpful? Help me out and send suggestions to filenewshow@gmail.com. Also in the chat, thank you, James, for getting back to us so quickly. His macros are center to artboard, expand, fit artboard to selected art, export selection, flip and copy, and then the 4 Pathfinder tools. Oh, cool. So you were able to make keyboard shortcuts for the Pathfinder tools, which I'm happy to hear that you do Pathfinder because I am also a Pathfinder guy. And a lot of the people that are either on Adobe Live or that I have talked to that are creators are all using the Shape Finder or Shape Builder tool. And I'm trying to teach myself to use it more often, which I think it's like Shift M in Illustrator. But in reality, it's like it just in my nature to use the Pathfinder. And it would be cool if I had like a little keyboard where I could just... Also, sorry that I had to take out your little clicky noises in your reel. I didn't want to get a content strike on it, so I had to use this software to pull out the music from the background, and it ended up being like, oh, that clicky is obviously some sort of music in the background. So we had that. Let's go and hop on into Rebrand. We have quite a few this week. Now I'm curious, did anyone in chat see the new Wonka movie? And if they did, what did they think? Are they Timothée Chalamet fans? Are you excited about how it looked and how it read? I know that it was a musical. Not a lot of people knew that actually going into it, similar to Mean Girls. But even if you haven't seen it, you've probably seen the branding and promotional material for it. And at the heart of it all is the new Wonka type. Differing from the original movie, the remake, and the candy brand, designer Alexandra Vernon had to find a new style that honored the past without being a generic remake. Now, Creative Blog caught up with her for their How We Made series to discuss the new wordmark, and she mentioned she had to combine and craft a logo using 2 existing sketches from the studio as part of the brief. In one of the scenes in the new movie, Wonka's mother wraps up a piece of chocolate and signs Wonka. She had to make sure that her creation fit within the narrative device, meaning it was able to be quickly written or like reasonably written. They didn't want to be like, but also wanted to remain beautiful and intriguing as the Wonka brand is known to be. She started by focusing specifically on the W, she said, and she even included this cool sketchbook that she has of a bunch of the different approaches. But she mentioned that while she worked with the different ornaments and flourishes because it was the hardest part, she mentioned worrying about how it would marry up with the rest of the type while keeping it balanced. And that's something that I run into a lot, I know. I think that in this specific rebrand, I think that it works well. I like how the W is hopping over into the A and the swirly of the K. I still think that it feels very on brand and of its time. I think it feels magical. I like the coloring of it. I think it was successful. And I think that it also doesn't try to outdo itself. I think that's something that she kind of is talking about, the idea of this balance. But I felt it actually was a very good solution to a problem. And while I didn't see the movie, I don't know if I will see the movie, I am excited to see a successful rebrand. Oliver says, there's a new Wonka movie? Where have you been, dude? Where have you been? But yeah. Also, there's this cute little tea brand called Clipper Tea. And I think we're going to keep things whimsical. And I didn't know about Clipper Tea before this, but a recent commercial has my attention. It features real footage of a bird, but with cute hand-drawn animations on top. There are these little cartoon arms and eyes and a teapot pouring tea. And they draw a little beanie on the birds, and it's simple, and it's funny, and it's endearing, and it adds a non-traditional brand voice to a market I don't normally associate with the word whimsical. Something that I also really wanted to kind of call out was the idea that this is kind of a trend of internet memes that happened at one point where the drawing arms on birds was like a funny thing that people did a lot. And I wouldn't normally think of it to be a ownable brand moment, but one, how they animated the arms, and two, the funny dance moves that they make the bird do, I think is something that makes it ownable in a way. And it's cool to see that it matches the artistic style of the package branding. I'm going to actually play it through one more time just because I think it's so cute. It has this cute English voiceover and then some music, but I didn't want to copyright strike, so that's why it is muted. But yeah, it's just this cute little bird. I don't know what kind of bird it is. I'm sure Aaron would be able to tell me. But it's moving back and forth, and it has a teapot and a little teacup, and it's dancing and pouring its own tea, only to then be next to the package. And it says Clipper, there's tea, then there's good tea, and then it has Clipper tea. I think it's very successful. I like how it looks. I like how it feels. Big fan. Umikor says, I think I saw some shorts or TikToks with that kind of animation. Yes, it feels very similar to that kind of vibe. And then the last rebrand we have, yes, we have 3 today, is for Assassin's Creed Mirage. And Assassin's Creed, new logo for Assassin's Creed Mirage looks to me like the traditional logo, but filled with decorative Arabic-inspired strokes. But to my surprise, is actually legible Arabic. And I found this out when I was recommended this video on Instagram by photographer Fadi Bukaram. And in this video, he does a really good job at breaking down how Egyptian designer Hatim Arafa designed it and how you could read it too. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cue it up and enjoy.
This is the logo from Assassin's Creed Mirage. It's a video game, and I don't know anything about it, but my friend Paul asked me what's the word in the logo because it's Arabic calligraphy. So I thought I'd talk a bit about the Arabic script, and I'll go back to the logo later. So in the Latin script, you can write in block letters, or you can write in cursive, where the letters are connected. Nothing changes there, you have the choice. But in the Semitic abjads, it's different. There is no choice. Hebrew, for example, is block letters, you can't connect them. For Aramaic, there are rules. Some letters connect, others do not. Same goes for Arabic. Arabic also has this feature where letters look a bit different depending on whether the letter is isolated, initial, medial, or final. Hebrew and Aramaic also have that, but to a lesser degree. Now, because many letters in Arabic are connected by default, this lent itself to an elaborate calligraphy style, which started as a focus on Quranic verses, and then it developed into an art form, really, where anything is possible. It is still used religiously, of course, but also secularly for sayings and celebratory events. And really, it just looks great. This is my name in Arabic, looking boring, and now this is the same name, looking a million times better. To go back to the video game logo, if we remove the mirroring and rotate, the word it illustrates is al-makhfi, the hidden. And here, just to give you a rough idea about how the letters are placed to do the design, all while showing my PowerPoint skills. In any case, I think the logo is beautiful, and I looked up who designed it, and it's an Egyptian guy called Hatem Arafa. I'll link to his socials in the comments.
Well, that was a really cool breakdown. And yeah, if to just my knowledge, otherwise I'd be like, oh, they kind of like did like an inspiration of different characters. I wouldn't actually think for it to be legible, which is really cool. One more thing about this game, as a side note, that full game is going to be released on the newest iPhone this year, which is a weird flex, but I remember Apple announcing that back in October, and it's not like a watered down version or like a portion of the game, like, you know, where they like would have this and then this is like the companion to it. Like, you'll be able to just pick up your phone and natively run the entire video game on your device. And if that thing in your pocket can run a full AAA game, people are going to make crazy stuff. Like crazy. Like I'm not, I wish I had pulled up different graphics for this game. The game is going to, it's going to be equal to what you play on your PS5 or your Xbox. Like, I find that so strange and weird. But speaking of people making crazy stuff, let's talk about some cool work in our last segment, which is Spotlight. So the first Spotlight of the week is actually also Fadi Bukaram. And I found that last video via Instagram Reels algorithm. And when I went to grab the video for the show, I found out he was also a really talented photographer, which I was surprised and a little disappointed because it just goes to show how Instagram's recommendation has evolved, and the idea that when I went to his Instagram, it was like these great reels and like he's creating great content like that, which is breaking down stuff, but it wasn't his photographs. And it wasn't until I went on to his website to see his work that I was able to see that he was a really talented photographer. He takes these really high contrast, vibrant photographs, and his framing turns shadows and colors into almost graphic blocks and shapes, and they often cut through the frame, forcing your eye to specific details. And this is not how he describes it. This is just how I saw it. I thought they were the coolest things. And they kind of like turn into these graphic blocks and shapes, and they still manages to do all of this while taking pictures of very candid subjects. They're not posed subjects. They're not kind of like studio shots, but they have this ability, like this one in particular, like it's a shot for people listening of people walking up downstairs, but it's taken from the side, and with it you get this really harsh shadow of the sun. And because the shadows are so strong, there are parts of the photograph that are completely black, and because of that, you are immediately drawn to the areas that are illuminated, and you get 6 different figures, including a seventh one that isn't actually even visible. Their shadow is only visible. And so you then kind of piecemeal the different feelings of the spot. Kendall says, looks almost like film photography. I think it is film photography from at least what I saw. I mean, especially in this very first one that I have, which... Oh, I realized that the spotlight was in front of that. Sorry, Fadi. But I want to make sure that I go through all of these and they have the screenshot with the name behind it as well. But I think they are shot on film. At least that's my best understanding of it. Just because that's how it looks. I didn't speak to him directly aside from being like, hey, can I show these on stream? But they're really pretty, and it was really cool to see. I am not fully well-versed in photography, but I do always appreciate seeing ones that catch my eye for that exact reason, because I don't necessarily know the technical skills. I don't know how to film. I've never done any sort of developing, but it's always cool to see. But thank you very much, Fadi, for not only creating great reels for us to go over, but also really great work for us to look at. Next up, we have ReadyMag website of the year, and ReadyMag.com released their website of the year awards, awarding first and second place winners in the 5 categories: impact, interactivity, self-promo, storytelling, and typography. Their well-designed website, of course, announcing the winners, also includes a handful of other very pretty candidates in each category. They're all really fun to scroll through and explore, and it's incredible how or at least me personally, tend to associate websites with services like Google or news sites, but the medium is actually really flexible for other use cases. In some cases, even storytelling, with an impactful history lesson is one of the ones that won. So this is ReadyMag's award of the year. I'm going to go ahead and I can go and share. I don't want to click through all of them. I want you guys to be able to experience them, because some of them are just really great for just actually going through. But you can see that they have impact, interactivity, self-promo, storytelling, and typography down here on the side. And you can scroll through and go different ones. But the one I was saying in particular was interesting as a history lesson was when you go down to storytelling, it's the one that got second place, actually. And it is this poignant story of Turkish convicts who had been photographed with their palms on the show so Sultan could decide whether they would live or die. And it's actually this real history lesson of, don't worry, this doesn't have too like graphic or anything, but it has, you measure your own thumb and index finger before you continue. And it talks about how during the 25th year of his reign, Abdul Hamid II ordered convicts to be photographed with their hands showing in preparation for a planned amnesty. And he had been moved by pseudo-scientific information that he had read in a crime novel that any criminal with thumb joints longer than index finger joints is inclined to be a murderer. And so, like, as you go down, it shows you these different vintage photographs. And and then kind of like has people like different lined up, and it has such a really intense feeling, where then it has like side by side of people who pass the test and others don't, and it's a dark feeling. Obviously, these are all people who probably would have been passed away already. That's how I kind of can justify it in my head. But it takes websites and it turns websites into more than just a news site or search site, and turns into experiences. And I think it was really well designed and invoked a very emotional experience out of me when I was going through it. But all of them are just really great websites, and they're not all the same too. Like, they have different aesthetics, they have similar trends for some of them, but a lot of the websites have their own feel. I think that it's very well curated. Even if you're not a web designer like myself, you can go through and you can find inspiration in plenty of different ways, whether it's the photography it's used. Everything can be scanned is really fun. And this is literally someone who just went through and just like scanned a bunch of stuff to be archived into digital spaces, because we have all of these physical objects that don't necessarily make their way into digital realms. And everyone loves a good scan situation, but it's fun to go around and click and kind of see how these different pieces work together. So I definitely recommend you guys go in. If you just go to readymag.com/readymag/websites of the year, it will pop up and you will see all the different ones. You can click in and out of them. Some of them are beautiful on mobile. I didn't try all of them on mobile, but it was really cool to just see people, flex their creative muscles. All right, and then we have time for one more of the spotlight, and this comes from It's Nice That, which, as you guys know, is one of my favorite websites. And Olivia Hingley, an author on It's Nice That, recently did a nice write-up about Iris Woodrow's frame-by-frame animations. She writes that apparently they're as meditative to make as they are to look at, and they're these really pretty small animated tactile scanned-looking loops. Some are as short as 2 seconds, with circles moving around a frame at 12 frames per second. Another has eyes softly blinking in and out of visibility. They're short and simple, but it's difficult to find where one starts and one ends. They feel like they're naturally so much longer than their short looks. And I encourage anyone that is listening to the podcast and not watching to go ahead and just search for Iris Wildros, which is IRIS WILDROS. And it probably will pop up with It's Nice. That article was posted on January 22nd. And some of these are just really relaxing, comforting, very tactile. I don't know if they're actually made physically or not, but they're these really nice animations that have low frame rates, but are just kind of fun to just sit and zone out and see where they go. I really like this apple one, where it's like the inside of an apple is kind of cut out and rotating within an apple that they already have. This eye blinking one is one that I brought up a little bit ago, where they kind of come and go out of visibility by merging with the circle that constrains them. And they're like these abstract kind of stories that, don't really say much, but maybe you can read into them, and they have really good feels. And then, I don't know how she pulls off these crazy circle ones with the continuity of keeping the circles to feel like they're all the same circles and not have a jittery feel to them. Like a little spiral one with a swan. They're just really fun to go through and zone out on. I feel like these would be really good ones to be hanging on your wall as a loop, which is fun. Kendall says, the cube one made me think about watching the screensaver bouncing and hoping it hit the corner. Yeah. I mean, we would be so lucky if these could be the screensaver ones, honestly. But this one you're talking about with it looks like kind of like a cauliflower bouncing around a box or maybe a mushroom of sorts. But all very cool. She doesn't go into how she necessarily makes them. So once again, I don't know if they are physical or digital, but they are very pretty. Iris Wildros. It's on itsnicethat.com, and give it a good read. But that is pretty much it for our time, you guys. I will say thank you so much for watching and for being here. Once again, this is now available as a podcast. So if you are listening and you want to be able to take it on the go with you, or if you just don't feel like you're going to be here for the time every Friday at 4 o'clock. It is live at 4 o'clock, but right after we go offline, I am going to go edit for a little bit and then hopefully get it up tonight so that it will then publish. But thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you for everyone that let me use their work on stream today. Thank you to all the journalists that are doing awesome work. Hope I do right by you by presenting your work. And thank you to everyone in chat that came out and said hello. Thank you to Emma Pay for being our YouTube viewer. And thank you to everyone else in Behance for being here and keeping me company. My name is Ryan Selvy. You can find me on Instagram as Ryan Selvy, RyanSelvy. And we'll be back here again next week at 4 o'clock, the File New Show. If you have any recommendations for different creators or things that you want to see talked about, please check out, please send an email to filenewshow@gmail.com. And I hope to see you guys all real soon. All right. Bye. Thanks for watching.